So Gerard is just the heart of gold. He is the captain of the army of good.
For me, it's about creating better conversations for education and business together. We can empower that network to ask more questions around what's the right path. Is it apprenticeships? Is it T-levels? Is it higher education?
Every time I work with Gerard and whenever we collaborate, I just see such positivity, such amazing energy. And I wanted to share his story about why he's so committed to making a difference, about investing in the future workforce, the future leaders, through schools, colleges, and the amazing network that he runs.
It's starting off really small and simple, because you don't actually realise that those absolute minute things that you do can have a big impact. Our innovators of tomorrow are the year sevens of today, and we need to nurture them, because if we don't, then actually our economy won't grow.
So, welcome Gerard. Thank you for coming. We're excited to kind of be talking about how you help people inspire to thrive, one in your team, but also the wider kind of community and the work which you do within careers education. I wanted to kind of sort of start off with a bit about you first though. Why do you do what you do?
I think it's something that just sort of pulls me back. When I think back of sort of majority of jobs that I've had over my career so far, a lot of them have been around that sort of that learning development, that supporting and developing people, and it's always sort of had a piece around that. And I think part of that was because when I sort of first came into the world of work, which wasn't through a traditional route at all, it was probably totally the opposite of that. People helped, and it's sort of that pay it forward mindset of actually, if I can do what some people have done for me, then it's almost just that sort of circle. It all comes back to you. It's sort of self-perpetuating. And I've found that. I talk to people now, 5, 10, 15 years well into my career, and we remember those early conversations or those things that we did together. And I remember those first really important times when somebody just goes, I can help you do that, or come in, let's have a look at this together. So I think for me, it's just about that wanting to support and help and nurture. Because I'm a great believer. It comes back around time and time again. It pays dividends for me. So yeah, that's why I do what I do and have done pretty much since I left school and went into college and beyond that as well.
So that pay it forward, I really like that, and it's something which kind of a lot of people like the idea of doing, but they're not quite sure how to do it, or what advice would you give to somebody who wants to kind of sort of like do that, and what would you say that they'd potentially get out of it? What's the return?
I think it's starting off really small and simple, because you don't actually realise that those absolute minute things that you do can have a big impact. I think we've spoken before around sort of the almost that Atomic Habits, which is a sort of a great book to be reading, and it's almost like the marginal gains piece of it, that you just do these little things and incrementally it all just seems to add up. And then I think that behaviour breeds behaviour as well. People see that actually, sometimes you hear these really big, grandiose gestures, and that's great and they're important. We want to change the world, but actually sometimes just having a conversation with a young person actually can change their world. So I think just taking a moment and going, what's the one small thing that I could do today that might make that difference for somebody tomorrow? Doesn't have to be a big gesture. I think for me, the most important thing around that is time. That's the biggest thing that you can give somebody, just a piece of your time. So I'm a great believer in that, whether it's just doing some voluntary work, supporting a young person, or just, as you know, through the work of the Careers Hub, really trying to make a sort of wholesale difference as well. But it all starts off with an idea.
And what generally you see people get when they give back, or they make those kind of roundabout acts of kindness?
I think it's like a gateway to something. You start doing this one thing and it's like, actually that wasn't quite scary. And then you start to have conversations with people about what you did. Maybe it's about that trepidation. Maybe it's about that fear of failure. But equally, when you do something, I will guarantee there's always that little buzz moment. There's always that little rush of sort of feeling good at the end of the day, going, yeah, I did that. But again, I keep coming back to those small things that make a big difference. But I know, we work with people and they start off and they might just work with us to give an hour to help somebody. And then, here we are sort of 5, 6, 7 years and down the line. And, those things have escalated. They might be working with a school and being a governor in that school, or doing something for a community group, or really helping remove barriers for young people. So I think just making sure that actually when you do want to do something that gives back and makes a difference, it's okay to try some things out. I think that didn't quite work for me, but that worked for me, and I'm really sort of getting my kicks from that. Then go further and go deeper, and that's what we see all the time. It's like I say, it's a bit of a gateway drug sometimes.
Brilliant, I love it. And money can't buy that gateway drug.
No, absolutely not. And the feeling that you get from it, it isn't one of those where you might wake up with a hangover the next morning. Actually, it's just that satisfaction of thinking, yeah, I am giving back. I can do something, and that's the thing. We probably all think about it. We see those things on TV and we think, I must do that. And sometimes it is the hardest part is making the start. Is just picking up that phone or dropping that email. But if you can find 5 minutes in a day to send an email, because heaven knows we send thousands every day, just send that one email and see what happens, because that could really change the world for you and for other people as well.
So what's inspired you? What's changed your world kind of to get you to where you are now in your career?
I think experience, and good and bad. I've been in some absolutely amazing jobs and I've loved them, and I've been in some jobs and thought, I need to get out of this. It's not right for me. I don't feel like I'm getting something or giving my whole self to that, and they're quite difficult questions to ask yourself sometimes. So I think, there's points where you go, hang on a moment, this isn't where I thought it was going to be or pan out. So I think for me, through my sort of career so far, a lot of that has been developing myself on the job. And I've been really fortunate to work with some amazing people who have mentored me, supported me, counselled me, found me in a corner crying. But I think sometimes, that having that network of trusted people, they're a community that will stay with you through your work career. I still talk to people in jobs, from many years ago, but we're always there for each other as well. So I think it's just about looking at what you want from a job, asking yourself, am I still getting that? And feeling like you're reaching those objectives and feeling like you're making that change. And if not, take a moment, think about what that might look like. We're on the planet not for a huge amount of time in the grand scheme of things. So I think, we quite often have commitments and we have families and we have to take those things into account. Of course we do, that's the reality of it. But sometimes sit down and talk to people about what you'd like to do, maybe rather than what you are always doing. So I think, for me, it's just having that sort of coalition of support around you that you trust and that you can talk to people. And that works two ways as well. I know people still sort of, sound me out on certain things and ideas and how crazy are these on the odometer. But I like those because they're good conversations to have and should continue to have.
Oh, we've had many of those conversations, and
Indeed,
it's interesting. You've introduced me to a few other people like Sandra,
yes,
who I'm going to certainly invite, kind of sort of to come and be a guest on Inspire to Thrive. Watch this space, kind of like it's expanded and it's not just germinated, it's grown a forest.
It has,
So it's an exciting, and it's all those kind of connections, and that's really good advice. You said as well, you've learned from the good and the bad.
Oh yes.
What lessons have you learned from, the good, the bad and the ugly of kind of creating a positive place to work where you do feel your full self? Yeah.
It's sort of industry and business, whether it's in the public or the private sector, has sort of grown and progressed. There's been a sort of recognition around what good, great, and what not good, and sometimes even toxic can look like. And those are good conversations to have about what happens in the workplace, because we all want to come to work and we want to be happy and healthy and fulfilled. But you've got, I'm a realist, and we want those things. We might not get them every day, but we should still strive to sort of achieve them for ourselves and for our teams as well. So I think for me, on some of the more uglier side of things, it's just taking a step back sometimes and looking at what's the sort of the value of that organisation, and is it actually their values on a piece of paper that really, you know, they look great on the wall and they're very colourful, but do people really buy into them? Do they really believe them? And I think that's quite a brave thing to do for an organisation, to ask its staff, you know, this is what we do around social value, or if you're a small to medium enterprise, this is what we do to give back. Do we stand by those things? You know, if somebody came in and actually audited us against that, could we hold our heads up high and say, we absolutely live and die by these things? So I think sometimes when that culture isn't really what it represents, then I think that's time to start asking yourself some questions. Is that the right environment? Are you really going to flourish? The opposite of that, you know, the good and the great, I think, you know, is where, and I look at this, I look at the people around me in my team, I see their skill set, I see their ambition, I see their innovation, and I see what they can bring to the party that I don't. And I really like to try and sort of empower them. And I think, you know, that for us has been part of the magic sauce that, you know, whilst I am that leader, if you like, of the Careers Hub, having those people around me with that passion and that commitment, because we've all got it in bucket loads in our team, drives this forward, and it unlocks other things for us. And it gives us that really authentic reputation of being a careers hub that actually will push the barriers, will disrupt, will innovate where we can. Because, you know, bringing it back to that sort of core vision, let's shake it up and see what we can do that's best for our young people. And me having a team that feel like they can come up with ideas, they can put something crazy on the table, and we can pick it apart together and put it back together and say, let's do this. I think that's the exciting part.
You mentioned there about values. What are your personal values and how are they aligned with then the Careers Hub?
That is probably one of the toughest questions I think I've been asked, because I almost sort of default to the organisation's values, and it made me sort of think about, what do I believe in? What are my values? And I sort of took some time, and you look at what that might mean in other areas. I think some of those things, and I think sometimes they can even change, and I think that's okay sometimes, you know, as long as they're good values. For me, it's about that sort of, I guess you might say that sort of empathy and emotional intelligence, to look at what is it that I need to have in the conversations that I'm talking to, whether it is with enterprise advisors like yourselves, whether it's with careers leaders or head teachers who are under tremendous pressure, whether it's to young people or partners, but actually thinking about the space that they're coming from or they're operating in. I sort of talk about careers leaders, actually, you know, that's never just one job that they've got. So we've got to appreciate that they've got huge amounts of other priorities as well. So I think definitely sort of having that empathetic approach is a personal value for me, and wanting to feel like anybody can approach me and talk to me about that. One of my biggest sort of personal values, and I think I'd probably do this without almost thinking, is just that whole collaboration piece. We've collaborated on countless projects over the years, as we have with all of our partners. And I go back to that, the strength of what we do is the collaboration and that convening partners of a group of like-minded people. You know, we've got an agenda, we've got a mandate, we all want to push forward on that. So I think the two things for me is definitely that sort of empathy and that sort of collaboration as well. But it's really got me thinking about my personal values. You've really sort of got the mindset now of like, what is it that drives me on that? So something for me to take away.
So how does that empathy and collaboration align then with the Careers Hub and the Enterprise Advisor Network as a whole?
Yeah. So I think from the empathy side of things, you know, let's first of all be clear. You know, we've got a mission, and we've got our objectives, and we've got our performance indicators to deliver on against that. We've got to make those changes happen. But actually, if we just go in there and start talking about things like statutory requirements and the things that you must do, and almost sort of taking that dictatorial approach, that is not going to win hearts and minds. That is not going to get every single one of those schools and colleges who connect with us to continue on this journey with us. I think the danger is we'd fragment all of that hard work. Equally, that empathy with our enterprise advisor network, who do this role on a voluntary basis. They give their time. And think about recent survey that we had, enterprise advisors in Leicester and Leicestershire, they give at least an extra 2-3 hours every month than the national average. So we're really, really fortunate here. But we have to have empathy that, we've been through and are going through some really tough challenges in the sort of local economy, whether it is that whole cost of living, whether it's people's health and well-being. So I think we've just got to take care of each other through that. And I think if we take care of each other, that empathy is reciprocal, it's mutual, it builds respect, trust. The foundations are right for everything that we do. So for me, that empathy sort of foundation sets us up for being really collaborative then. It's like we're in the same space, we're thinking about the same things, we see the same challenges. So actually, it just means that we've got this real opportunity of a group of over 90 schools and probably more or less the same number of enterprise advisors to come together in that sort of whole hive mind and tackle some of the biggest challenges that we've got for young people, whether that is having inclusive workplaces, whether it is helping them to get to where they want to be if they're an entrepreneur like you, Dan, or whether they actually want to go into academia. What can we do to help them on that journey? Well, if we've got businesses helping us in that conversation, we've got educators helping us in that, we need to bring in some other aspects of that. Parents are a key part of this. But if we can get all of those key components right, then I think that empathy still stays there, but that collaboration just takes us to the next level. That's what excites me. Hopefully that you can sense that's what keeps us moving on this journey as well.
You talk there kind of about the vision, the values, and this year has been great. You've got an opportunity to reflect on all the amazing work that you've achieved over the last 5+ years. The Enterprise Advisor Network in Leicester is really established now, and there's been so much learning. So firstly, can you talk a bit about what you've learned over that time, and what are you going to then take forward, and where will that help then achieve the vision?
We went through quite a period of change where we sort of scaled up the network from 20 schools to 90. And I think sort of around that, we had to shift and reshape some of the way that our enterprise advisors engaged with schools. So we had that sort of whole change management piece going on. But whilst we were doing that, listening to what our network was telling us, and we always try and sort of take that forum with careers leaders or with enterprise advisors to sort of listen to what was being played back to us from the network. Because if we're not serving you as our customers, then we're not quite getting this right. Some of the things that came back that really resonate with me: enterprise advisors want to do more. Not necessarily just with that one school that they work. Actually, they want us as the Careers Hub to leverage their skills and deploy them in other areas, so that actually we can maximise on that as well, which was absolute music to our ears. Because I think we have to acknowledge, we've come through the pandemic, and we weren't sure in our network if we would lose some of our enterprise advisors. You are business people, you have organisations to run. And whilst your hearts are very much invested in that agenda, we just didn't know whether you could sustain doing that as a network. And you really answered the call for that. I mean, you flipped and pivoted like there was no tomorrow. You offered us virtual support. You offered us opportunity to create resources, all of those things. So in some ways, whilst we cannot underestimate the tragic things that happened, it would be remiss of me to not talk about some of the innovation that came out of that, because we had to. For careers leaders, what they were sort of playing back to us is that they really wanted some sort of, I call it hyper-local resources. There are huge amounts of really great resources from some national organisations out there, but they want to hear from what's happening in Leicester and Leicestershire. And let's not forget, we're sort of 97, 98% small to medium enterprises. So, those are the organisations that we also need to sort of be a voice around as well. So we took those things away and sort of sat down and thought about what our response would be, and we sort of shaped that. So we started to launch things like a resource directory just for our Leicester and Leicestershire schools they could pick up. We're one of the only careers hubs in the country to have developed and delivered a careers curriculum for all of our schools. You know, we have a maths curriculum, an English curriculum. Why don't we have a careers curriculum? So watch this space for where we go with that. Alongside that, because you know, obviously we're not going to be busy enough, are we, doing those things? We have a suite of projects called We Discover, and there are research projects, but actually they deliver a product or a service into those schools. So I won't sort of go through all of them, but we've got one which really reaches into work with parents around helping them to have careers conversations with their young people. And we run events like our VIP events, very important parent events. We take parents to these workplaces. We've got We Discover Transitions. That's about our send young people and helping them move into education, employment or training. As you will know, we are a really diverse community in Leicester and Leicestershire, and we have a high proportion of young people who have English as an additional language. So we have a project around celebrating that, because that is actually hugely valuable as an asset to the business community as well. So all of these projects, they've unlocked additional things for us. So they're what I call our sort of value-added projects. But this next academic year, we're starting to mainstream that. So we've took everything that we know that works in our network and everything that we know has been working from our projects. And that's what's driving us forward. That's that mandate of where we go with this. So it's going to be a busy year, Dan, that's for sure. But again, no enterprise advisors, no careers leaders engaged. Then these projects, they don't get sort of flagged to us, and we then can't deliver on them if we don't know about them as well.
That sounds so exciting, especially the whole kind of knowledge transfer and this kind of almost toolbox of knowledge that can be shared across all the schools. Because certainly for me, education isn't about one size fits all, and we have a system that fits in with that kind of that way of working, because there's so many people to deal with. If we can then tap in to then this bank of knowledge, this amazing resource of people, the opportunities to share that and shape then a careers curriculum, that's exciting. And collaboration at the kind of core.
And everybody wins from this, if you like, because the young people are better prepared for the world of work. Local businesses are getting young people that will be coming to them with the right knowledge, skills and behaviours alongside those qualifications as well. And businesses sort of play that back to us quite clearly. They want the right sort of called KSPs, the knowledge, skills and behaviours. And then I think we can empower that network to ask more questions around what's the right path. Is it apprenticeships? Is it T-levels? Is it higher education? Is it A-levels? Let's have a conversation. Let's have an informed conversation around that, because then that keeps our talent coming into being the lifeblood of our businesses. It keeps our creatives coming into this sector. It keeps our scientists here, because we've got a lot to offer in Leicester and Leicestershire. And we can always do more to shout about that and celebrate it as well.
Why is it important for us all to kind of invest in this? Our future leaders, investing in careers education. Why is that important?
If we don't, without sort of going too much into the sort of stratosphere on these things, but if you think about productivity and growth, actually, people in the organisation, that's where it all starts. It's that old adage of look after your people. So we need those people who are, our year 7s right now, who will be, moving through and year 12s, and then they'll be progressing on to the world of work. If we can give them insights into what the wants and the needs of industry are and what industry can offer them, and they actually have a far greater informed decision about where they're going, because they've had lots of encounters with organisations and they go, actually, I don't like that. That's not for me. But I really love that aspect of what this sector does or this organisation does. Then we can start to really get positive destinations for our young people, but we also get our business community feeling like they're getting the right young people who can contribute to whatever it is that business does. And let's not forget, in Leicester and Leicestershire, we've got our sort of amazing enterprise zones where we've got sort of, real clusters of innovation that happen. That's what we want to be able to talk about. Our innovators of tomorrow are the year 7s of today, and we need to nurture them, because if we don't, then actually our economy won't grow.
Brilliant. Can you give a couple of examples? You're a great storyteller, but you've seen this, live, of some examples of organisations that really embraced this, invested in, these future leaders to thrive, and what outcome have they had? What outcome has come about for those organisations and the young people involved?
So I'll talk about some of the employers from our Cornerstone employer group, and they work with us sort of more a strategic level. So they're looking at the sort of what can they do for the network of schools and colleges and young people in Leicester and Leicestershire. And one of the things that we've been piloting with them over the last probably about 12 to 18 months is a bit of a sort of flexible hybrid work experience project. So there's always a problem that we've got to address first. And the problem is that we've got an unlevel playing field for young people around workplace experiences. Some get a really great workplace experience, some get very little or nothing at all. And for me, that's just not right. If you can't see what happens in industry, then how are you going to make those decisions? Second is time. Comes up time and time again, but time for schools to release those young people, and actually the time that it takes to organise those things. So we've worked really hard to come up with this sort of flexible offer, and some of our Cornerstone employees have sort of piloted this. And that what the feedback is telling us from all parties involved is that this model really works for them, because a young person actually gets to build a more meaningful relationship with that employer over 3-4 weeks. They start to get to know the organisation that comes in, or even the apprentices that come in. So it's not just that sort of intense 1 week thing that happens and then nothing else, if that makes sense. So Unbox Your Future has that flexibility around it, but the employers have fed back that actually it gives them a sense of they've really been able to tell those young people about their organisations, whether it is the entry points into that career, whether it's about the staff benefits and the pay, and those important things that young people don't always think about. So if I pick, for example, Cavendish Nuclear, who work with us, Cadent Gas, who work with us, Leicester City Football Club, a great community organisation called Peter Le Marchant Trust, Inspired to Care, just to name 5 organisations that piloted with us. The majority of those, in fact, I think all of those now have come back and said, we're going to continue to do this. This is our future. So we've got some of those larger organisations who are going to embed this in their organisations as a way to really bring through their talent pipeline. So going back to your original question now, what we've got is this vehicle that creates an opportunity for young people to hear about that organisation in whole. But if you think of it as a sort of inverted triangle, that as people go through that Unbox Your Future, they're getting down to that critical point where they go, actually, I really like what Cadent Gas or Cavendish Nuclear do. I think I want to go there because I've heard and I've seen and I've engaged, rather than just going on, well, I've seen a job description, I don't quite understand all the language because I've never had a job before, so I'm going to put an applicator. It takes away some of that. That is just the start of that journey for us. But I think for us, that's a real tangible, measurable way of showing impact for young people and impact for the businesses who do have some challenges around bringing on apprentices or T-levels and actually starting to develop that talent pipeline. So yeah, watch the space for this one as we move into the next academic year.
So what does that mean for you then personally? Because obviously you've helped facilitate that, and now you've got 100%, out of these 5, they've all agreed, and then other people are coming. So, it's over 100%. We can't even put a percentage on there, but it's a success.
Yeah.
What does that personally mean for you?
There is a sense of pride there for me and behalf of the team, because we all come together. These ideas have sort of incubated and evolved. We actually started an original Unbox Your Future during the COVID pandemic, when we knew that there were some young people who were very isolated and weren't having careers conversations. So for me, it's about creating better conversations for education and business together. And if I bring that back to the framework that we work around, the Gatsby benchmarks, so every school and college working towards those, that's a world-class careers programme. So we're aiming for sort of gold level here. But that Unbox Your Future really helps schools progress against a number of those benchmarks so they can demonstrate that movement as well. So everybody can talk about the story and talk about the impact. What I would love to hear is, in 2, 3, 5 years' time, that sort of, somebody taps us on the shoulder and says, I did Unbox Your Future. I remember you, we did Unbox Your Future. It's unlocked this for me and I'm now in this part of my career. Those are just those moments where you go, that's what it's all about. That's the piece there for me. But for us, we're not in this to monetize, to generate income. We develop these things and we put it out into the universe for any school in Leicester and Leicestershire and beyond that to use. We're creating the blueprint more than anything else.
I think that's what's the exciting bit. It's, that legacy that you're creating the blueprint, and other people can adopt it, and other people can then take, kind of sort of ideas. I've got utmost respect for South Charmel, where they came to, your large speed networking event, and borrowed the idea and then morphed it into what fitted in perfectly for the school. And I think it's creating that sense of, kind of like ability to borrow ideas, evolve them, collaborate on them, is what's really kind of exciting, from then the overall network. And you can see that you're passionate about that and, facilitating that.
Yeah. So. And I think it's really important to not underestimate as well. And we've seen it through South Charmwood's, the United Business Alliance, the SCUBA, that, it takes time and effort and energy, but those rewards. And, I always talk about some of those year 10 student ambassadors that, when you see them recruiting the next year, that sense of pride and ownership and just really, that's part of that school's DNA now for me. And you are synonymous with that. We can't get away from that. But I think, that's the power of the enterprise advisors, bringing in your sort of business mindset of going, well, actually, we could take that. This is quite a common model in business, but let's do something like this in school. So there was an opportunity there where your insight really sort of switched the light on and changed the thinking of that senior leadership team as well. So I think there's just that willingness to test some of these things. And, here we are, 5, 6, 7 years down the line with South Charmwood. And, it's still something that I get asked about at a local and national level as well.
And with kind of sort of a business that's maybe having issues, barriers to recruit, to grow and nurture, kind of sort of like their internal talent, but also then kind of attracting kind of sort of other people. What advice would you give to help them kind of inspire their people to thrive?
I think there's a couple of dimensions to that. I talk about building the workforce for the future. My advice to businesses is think about what you want to get out of this. So sometimes businesses will automatically think we need a graduate. But actually, you might really need somebody who's going to stay with you longer on an apprenticeship. Or it could be that actually you might want to do something around a sort of an industry placement. So think creatively. Don't always go for what you think it has to be. And careers leaders are great to have conversations around that. So I think for businesses, just take a moment and reflect. Almost just put that wish list together. And then think about what is it that you really need in your business. Is it you need research and development, or actually is it that you want the inspiring young mind to come and cast a fresh lens on a business problem? All those things can happen. But that then gives you some flexibility around the sort of the right age range of what you want from that as well. I do think for those businesses who are thinking about the sort of the longer term plan, not just the sort of immediate need or that knee-jerk reaction, is that I go back to sort of thinking about maybe even engaging with year 7, 8 and 9s, because at year 10, 11 and onwards, they've made some of their career decisions already and they've taken some of their options. So they've sort of set their path out and you haven't influenced that. So you've kind of missed out on that. So the earlier you start, the better. From a inside of the business piece, I think sometimes when you are recruiting as a business, I would think about what's that job description or that recruitment process that you're using, because the feedback that we get quite often is that could be off-putting for a young person because they might not be able to give that evidence or meet that requirement of the person's specification and give all of those examples. Particularly now, there aren't the sort of range of traditional Saturday jobs that you and I probably would have had. So young people have to sort of work more creatively. So I would urge businesses to just take a moment and think about, rather than just pushing that job description out as a sort of stock, or even using that language, and we're all guilty of doing it. Think about maybe talking to a young person about that job description, maybe getting their input. There's some great organisations in Leicester and Leicestershire who do offer that as a sort of a service, a sort of almost consultancy. And the feedback's quite astonishing on that, because all of a sudden you're opening up that talent pool to young people, and it could be that whole neurodiverse piece. That there are so many young people who have amazing talent, but actually are put off because that job description isn't just quite phrased right. It's not for me. It doesn't resonate with me. So I'm very passionate about that. We want to see more of that in the next year. We want to disrupt that space a little bit more as well.
So let's talk about schools, and where you've seen great examples of where schools have really kind of immersed themselves in the opportunity within the Enterprise Advisor Network and other, kind of sort of like opportunities around kind of careers education. How have you seen those kind of sort of careers leads, the senior leadership team really adopt this? And then what outcomes and benefits have they had from, kind of immersing themselves into this world?
We've been working with a number of schools, somewhere around the sort of 16 or more mark, where we've almost sort of ran it as a transformational project management piece, to use business terms, around their careers programme. Because the difficulty for any school or any education institution is that turnaround time, that time to embed something. When you think about schools, they're thinking about the next academic year, the timetabling, etc. So it's never a sort of almost immediate response. So our transformations project takes in a range of stakeholders, and that includes senior leaders, governors, parents, carers, students, teachers. There's other people in there as well. And actually, it just starts to strip back. Let's look at what our vision is for careers education in our school. So the young people, what do you need? What do you expect from us? Parents, what do you want? So all of a sudden, we've got this really exciting dialogue going on, where we can start to capture this. And part of my team's role in that is actually they capture all of that. They're sort of, they're pulling all of this into what will effectively be a plan for that school. And it's so powerful, because at the end of that, which can take a sort of a week-long programme, the end result is that we've got a whole institutional level buy-in to a careers education programme. So if you think about that for a moment, quite often historically we've had a careers advisor giving careers advice, and that's kind of it to a degree. What we're doing is changing that whole conversation to bring about that systemic change, to go, actually, we want careers to be part of our DNA. We want labour market information in our curriculum. We want to know what the employer's skills and demands needs are. Where's the growth in Leicester and Leicestershire? Where are the jobs? So all of a sudden, just this real sort of flurry of changing mindsets around that in quite a sort of intense period of time. But at the end of that, then what we've got is a really robust careers education plan that is sequential from year 7, that is consistent across the whole of the school, and that everybody understands the part that they play. So it isn't just that careers advice piece, that's still critical, but actually it's almost everything that happens when you get to that piece as well. So that's been really exciting for us. That's sort of changed our way of thinking as well around that. If we were going to go sort of cold and hard on what does that mean for sort of, measurable targets, one of the most stretching targets that we have is that all schools in Leicester and Leicestershire need to have that stable careers plan. And our target was around about 80%. And actually, we're really confident this year that we'll meet that, and potentially, dare I even say it, go slightly above that. Now, that for me is absolutely amazing. And those programmes will now continue to be evaluated. They will continue to have input, and they'll continue to have those sort of continuous improvement pieces. Why are we doing this in our school? Does it deliver for our young people? Rather than just going, oh yeah, we always do that. It's great. Yeah, we always take those students to that careers fair. So what happens? What changes for them? So I think that for me is a sort of a big change for us. If I think back maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and we just started on this journey, one of the biggest sort of learning curves for us and the investment in the Careers Hub has been gathering the evidence around this. So it's less about the sort of anecdotal feedback, which is important, that sort of, that qualitative information, but actually looking at the trends and looking at what the data is telling us and then building a response to that. And what we've seen last year and we'll continue to see in this year is that those Gatsby benchmarks that are the most difficult for those schools to achieve, we've built the solutions to help the schools move across that, the common problems. That's not to say that, it's not a silver bullet. We have lots of work to do, but I think the foundations of what we've done are absolutely solid. And that has that benefit, again, moving into business as well.
And when you've got grand designs like this, there's always going to be kind of challenges and setbacks, but I can see that you're committed and, you're focused on how to kind of achieve that. If I had a genie's lamp and could give you 3 wishes to help get to that vision, to achieve those goals, what would they be?
Okay, just 3.
You've only got 3.
Okay. I think when we listen to what the network has sort of played back to us, I think time. If we could give careers leaders more time to do the things that they want to do, to unlock those ideas that are all there, you've heard them, I've heard them, if we could let those ideas manifest through having more time, that would be amazing. Because sometimes, I'm not saying that that there isn't a financial need to make some of these things happen, but sometimes it's the time to think, plan, do, reflect as well. So I would definitely say time is the biggest one. Second wish. Okay, this is harder than I thought, actually. I think the second wish is that if we could turn back that time, if we had the Careers Hub when we started the Enterprise Advisor Network, and actually we could really start to sort of have that community of practice earlier on. I think this is just me wanting to sort of put the accelerator down more to go, wouldn't it be great actually, if where we're at now, at this point in time, we were able to deploy those things. So my wish would be, for number 2, that every young person is getting a positive destination, no matter what their background is. Stop having those conversations about, you can't do that, and start having conversations of, have you thought about this? So I think my second thing is positive destinations for young people. And then let's put one in for the business side of things as well, is that actually if you take those first 2 wishes, that the third wish is that businesses, when we next survey them, that we move from where we're at the moment, which I think is about 43% of our businesses say our young people are ready for the world of work. I want that change. I want every business to say, my problem now is, who do I choose? You've given me such a difficult problem because, these young people have all got the right attitude, aptitude, they're hungry, they know about my organisation, they've researched it. Wouldn't it be amazing to go, every knock on the door for a business is a potential candidate? And I think for me, that would be my sort of third and final wish. I think I might have just done myself out of a job if we do get all those wishes come through, but I'm happy with that.
I don't think it's putting yourself out of a job. I think it's creating a great society.
It would be amazing.
Both people and then both sides are happy and we're actually making it as a whole, and that's an exciting bit. If we can marry the two of, I've got the destination and I'm providing the destination, you're the right person to welcome in, where could we take society, where can we take the world?
Absolutely. And I take that back to our earlier, probably the beginning of our conversation today, and it's that pay it forward, isn't it? That everybody sees that we've all helped each other along the way, and actually it just becomes, it becomes the usual. What can I do for you as an employee coming into my organisation? What can I do for you as a young person in the school? Yeah, that's the question. What can we do?
You do a lot for everybody. And you do a lot for Leicester and a lot for the schools and all the network. Me as an enterprise advisor, there's a lot of giving. What can we give to you and what helps you inspire to thrive?
I think on a personal level, when any individual contacts me and has a conversation, whether it is just, your name becomes synonymous with these things sometimes. I think when somebody is ready to just think about, I could do something, I could give back. I think for me, that really just sort of fills me with that sense of excellent. That's somebody else in the cause. That's somebody else in this sort of army of good that we're creating as well. So I think that when people give me their time, actually they're giving the network their time. We learn from that as well. So I think it's that time, and I think sometimes it's that challenge of what we do. Actually, we are driven by our sort of our policy from central government to sort of move some of this forward, and that's great and that's important. But it's the passion that does this. I think about one of our LLEP board members who I've spoken to many times, and sort of often just sort of go, Gerard, when you're doing this, make sure that your passion is your purpose. And that still resonates with me now. And I love that. I'm not one for huge amounts of sort of big sort of statements and quotes, but that one still sort of sits with me quite well. Just, make your passion your purpose.
That's a good bumper sticker.
It's great, isn't it? I know, yeah, get a t-shirt.
So what advice would you give to us all to kind of collaboratively create this army of good, as you've just called it? I love that army of good. That's great. So we can really help society to thrive. I
think just take that opportunity to, every business has its problems and challenges, and it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's scaling up, growth, or unfortunately if it's having to pivot because things have changed. But within that, people are always needed. Even with that sort of whole big conversation around artificial intelligence, people are still needed around these things. So I think for me, businesses can look at what some of their challenges and problems are, and actually maybe think about, could you draw in from the education community to help you solve some of that? Actually, and I go back to that sort of unbox your future. We take a live business problem out and we get young people working on it. So I think it's a really interesting moment there to go, actually, this could have a tangible business benefit because I've got some people thinking about this in a different way. And the young people will feel actually, even adults will think about, actually, this is real, this is context to it. This is actually going to make a difference somewhere along the lines. So I think you can actually be quite creative around that. So actually, that problem can be presented out to the network, and you can almost sort of look for solutions out there as well. Don't overlook some of that. I think about some of the young people who are part of our youth advisory board. They've been instrumental in some of those most difficult challenges that we've had around engaging young people in the world of work. And they've come back and they've been quite brutal on some of those things with us, but we needed to hear it as well. So I think using that youth voice in some of those challenges is something that's worth thinking about as well. Take a business and see where you might find some other creative solutions beyond the front door of the business.
I think that's so true, isn't it? Because actually reaching out into that almost naivety, that unknown, we're not referencing then to what it was like and what it could be. Yeah. It's coming from just pure creativity, more pure imagination. And we do need that to innovate and to kind of make a change. Absolutely.
I've got to say this phrase, I'm sorry, but it is that blue sky thinking. it's that no constraints. It's that, let's just put everything to one side for the moment. I think it's that sort of, that almost Einstein sort of approach of, you have to spend 98% of the time looking at the problem first. 2% is when you're just building up that last bit of the solution as well. And young people, they've got such great creative minds. They always just blow me away by that. Just give them something to work on, and something coming from a business always has that credibility. It's not just something that's manufactured in the classroom as an activity. Actually, and there could even be some sort of reward or recognition around it. Quite simply, come and spend some time with the CEO, come and have a tour around the building. Those things fundamentally shift a young person's view on what it's like to be in business. And I think sometimes that doesn't always have the best image for the corporate side of things. I think, sometimes actually young people need to see inside the building to see what's happening, the teamwork, that sort of way that a business operates from finance through to legal and production, all of those things.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. We could talk for days.
Oh, indeed.
And then I know we will. We'll continue kind of this journey of like creating that dialogue. I certainly thank you from being an enterprise advisor, but also all the advice and the support and the kind of creativity that you kind of get from the network has helped me be a better father, because I'm now thinking about what my children can do and how we can influence those year sevens to then be the future leaders. If we all collectively work on that, we will achieve it. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Great.
Been a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Nice,
Thanks. Really enjoyed it.